The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The forest surrounding John Harper's cabin was alive with the sounds of crickets chirping and leaves rustling softly in the cool breeze. It was a quiet evening, just like any other, until Max broke the calm. Max, John's loyal golden retriever, began barking wildly at the edge of the property. His sharp ears perked up, and his tail wagged furiously as he darted toward the dense woods behind the cabin. At first, John thought it might be another raccoon, or maybe even a deer that had wandered too close to their home. But something about Max's urgency felt different tonight. Grabbing his flashlight, John followed Max into the trees. "What is it, boy?" he called out, his voice echoing faintly in the stillness. Max didn't stop. He kept running deeper into the woods, his paws crunching against the fallen leaves. John quickened his pace, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the growing darkness. Finally, Max skidded to a halt near a cluster of bushes. He sniffed the air, then let out a low whine, looking back at John with wide, concerned eyes. Pushing aside the branches, John froze. There, lying motionless on the damp ground, was someone, or something, unlike anything he'd ever seen before. She was small, no taller than a child, but her features were unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered faintly, glowing with an ethereal light that pulsed gently, almost like breathing. Long, silvery hair spilled around her face, partially covering delicate pointed ears. She wore what appeared to be some kind of metallic suit, though parts of it were scorched and torn, revealing smooth, pale skin beneath. John crouched down cautiously, his heart pounding. Was she alive? He reached out hesitantly, placing 2 fingers on her neck. A weak pulse throbbed under his touch, steady but faint. Relief washed over him, quickly replaced by concern. What was she doing here? And who, or what, had hurt her? Max stayed close, nudging her gently with his nose as if trying to wake her. John scanned the area for clues. Scorch marks blackened the nearby trees, and strange footprints, too large to belong to any animal he knew, led away from the scene. Whatever had happened here, it wasn't natural. "All right, buddy," John murmured, glancing at Max. "We can't just leave her." Carefully, he slipped one arm under her legs and the other around her shoulders, lifting her up. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. As he carried her back toward the cabin, Max trotted ahead, occasionally glancing back to make sure they were following. By the time they reached the cabin, John's mind raced with questions. Who, or what, was she? Where did she come from? And most importantly, why had fate brought her here, to this remote corner of Earth? For now, though, there was only one thing he could do: help her survive the night. Laying her gently on the couch, John lit a lantern and examined her injuries more closely. Burns marred her arms and torso, and deep gashes ran along her side, as if made by claws. He cleaned the wounds as best he could, using antiseptic and bandages meant for humans. Max curled up protectively beside her, watching intently, as if guarding her from unseen threats. As the hours passed, John couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. For him, for Max, and perhaps even for the world. Little did he know, his simple act of kindness was about to set off a chain of events far greater than he could imagine. The night stretched on, silent except for the occasional crackle of the fire in the wood stove, and Max's steady breathing. John sat beside the couch, his eyes fixed on the mysterious girl. Her faint glow pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, but she hadn't stirred since he brought her inside. He wondered if she was dreaming, or if aliens even dreamed at all. As dawn broke, soft sunlight filtered through the cabin windows. John had dozed off in his chair, only to be jolted awake by a sudden movement. The girl was shifting slightly, her eyelids fluttering open. For a moment, their eyes met. Hers were unlike anything human, large and luminous, with iridescent colors that seemed to shift like liquid metal. She tried to sit up, but pain flashed across her face, and she let out a soft sound, almost musical yet strained. Max perked up immediately, wagging his tail cautiously as if trying to reassure her. John leaned forward, speaking gently. "It's okay. You're safe here." Her gaze darted around the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings before settling back on him. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Instead, something extraordinary happened. A flood of images filled John's mind. A swirling galaxy, lush green forests under twin suns, towering crystalline structures, and then scenes of chaos. Explosions, battles, creatures with jagged teeth chasing her through shadowy corridors. John gasped, clutching his head. It wasn't just random pictures. It felt like memories, emotions, and sensations pouring directly into his brain. He stumbled backward, overwhelmed. What was that?" he stammered. The girl blinked slowly, tilting her head as though studying him. Then, more images came, gentler this time. This time, they showed gratitude, warmth, and trust. Slowly, fragments of words began forming in John's mind. Asterisk, Alar at asterisk. Alara. John repeated hesitantly. She nodded weakly, pressing one hand against her chest. Her touch sent another wave of understanding. Not speech exactly, but meaning. Telepathy. Over the next few hours, communication became a clumsy dance of gestures, fragmented thoughts, and trial and error learning. Alara pointed to objects around the cabin, projecting simple labels into John's mind. Asterisk couch asterisk, asterisk fire asterisk, asterisk dog asterisk. Max barked playfully when she focused on him, clearly amused by how his image translated into her language. A series of barking sounds accompanied by feelings of loyalty and protection. Through these exchanges, John pieced together parts of her story. She came from a distant planet called Lizera, a place once known for its beauty and harmony. But war had torn it apart, waged by factions seeking power over rare resources. Alara belonged to a group trying to preserve peace, but they were hunted mercilessly. The wounds on her body weren't accidents. They were inflicted by those who wanted her silenced. Despite the grim details, there was hope in her expressions whenever she looked at John or Max. They represented safety, kindness, qualities she hadn't experienced in far too long. In turn, John found himself drawn to her resilience. Despite everything she'd endured, she radiated calm determination. By evening, Alara seemed stronger, able to sit upright without wincing. She reached out tentatively, placing her glowing hand on Max's head. The dog leaned into her touch, closing his eyes contentedly. Watching them bond made John smile, but unease lingered in the back of his mind. Whoever had hurt her would likely come looking. And when they did, this quiet corner of Earth wouldn't stay peaceful for long. For now, though, John pushed those worries aside. He fed Alara small bites of fruit, which she accepted cautiously, savoring each morsel as if tasting something entirely new. As the fire crackled softly in the background, an unspoken agreement formed between them. They would face whatever came next, together. Little did John know, their fragile sanctuary was already being washed. Somewhere beyond the stars, forces far greater than either of them could comprehend were preparing to descend upon their world. The days that followed were a mix of wonder and tension. John marveled at Alara's resilience as she healed, her wounds closing faster than any human injury ever could. Her shimmering skin grew brighter with each passing day, and the faint hum of energy around her seemed to grow stronger. Yet, despite her recovery, an ominous shadow hung over them, a sense that they weren't truly safe. Max became increasingly restless, pacing near the windows or barking at nothing in particular outside. One afternoon, while John was chopping wood behind the cabin, Max darted into the trees, his ears pinned back and his tail stiff. John dropped the axe and hurried after him, calling out, "Max, what is it?" When he caught up, Max stood frozen at the edge of a clearing, staring upward. Following his gaze, John froze too. Hovering silently above the treetops was a sleek, metallic object, too smooth and angular to be natural. It wasn't making a sound, but its presence felt suffocating, like a predator sizing up its prey. Then, without warning, it zipped away, disappearing into the clouds. John's blood ran cold. "They're here," he muttered under his breath. He rushed back to the cabin, where Elara sat by the window, gazing out with wide eyes. She must have sensed it too, because her expression darkened when she saw him. Images flooded his mind again, this time filled with dread. Sharp-toothed creatures, burning cities, and relentless pursuit. "They're hunting you," John said, his voice trembling. Elara nodded solemnly, her hands clenching into fists. She pointed toward the woods, then mimicked running. "We need to leave," John asked. She nodded again, urgency in her glowing eyes. But leaving wouldn't be easy. That night, strange lights flickered through the forest, casting eerie shadows across the walls of the cabin. John peeked outside cautiously, spotting drones scanning the area with piercing red beams. They moved methodically, searching every inch of ground. Elara pressed herself against the wall, her breathing shallow. Max growled low in his throat, sensing danger. "We can't stay here," John whispered. Grabbing a backpack, he stuffed it with supplies. Food, water, first aid kits, and a flashlight. He strapped a hunting knife to his belt, though he doubted it would do much against whatever was coming. Elara watched quietly, occasionally projecting calming thoughts into his mind to steady his nerves. Just as they prepared to slip out the back door, one of the drones hovered closer, its beams slicing through the darkness. Max barked sharply, startling it for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, John grabbed Elara's hand, pulling her into the woods. "Stay close," he urged. The trio wove through the dense underbrush, guided by Max's instincts. The dogs sniffed the air, leading them away from the drone's search patterns. Behind them, the hum of machinery grew louder. More drones joined the hunt, their beams cutting through the trees like angry eyes. Elara stumbled once, her strength still not fully restored. John hoisted her arm over his shoulder, helping her keep pace. "Not much farther," he panted, though he had no idea where they were going. All he knew was that staying put meant capture, or worse. After what felt like hours, Max led them to a rocky outcrop hiding the entrance to a cave system. Ducking inside, they huddled in the shadows, listening as the drones passed overhead. For now, they were safe, but only temporarily. As they caught their breath, John noticed carvings etched into the cave walls, symbols unlike anything he'd seen before. Some glowed faintly, reacting to Elara's presence. She touched one reverently, and a surge of understanding washed over John. These weren't just markings. They were messages left by others like her, travelers who had sought refuge on Earth long ago. The realization hit him hard. This planet wasn't just their home. It was a sanctuary. And now, thanks to Elara, humanity might finally learn why. But first, they had to survive the hunters closing in. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of earth and moss. The carvings on the walls glowed softly in response to Elara's presence, casting an otherworldly light that danced across their faces. John ran his fingers over the symbols, marveling at their intricate designs. Some depicted star maps, while others showed scenes of beings interacting with humans, offering gifts, sharing knowledge, or simply coexisting peacefully. Elara traced one carving with her fingertips, her expression softening as memories surfaced. Images flooded John's mind again, this time of her people arriving on Earth centuries ago during times of great turmoil. They hadn't come as conquerors, but as seekers of refuge, hoping to escape the endless wars ravaging their galaxy. These caves had been a waypoint, a hidden sanctuary where they could heal and regroup before continuing their journey. "They trusted us," John murmured, awestruck by the weight of what he was learning. "Your people, they saw something good in humanity." Elara nodded, projecting feelings of gratitude and sadness. Her thoughts conveyed how much her kind admired Earth's resilience, the way its ecosystems thrived despite challenges, much like the human spirit itself. But she also shared glimpses of betrayal, showing how some factions among her people had turned against those ideals, using Earth's resources for selfish gain. That greed had sparked the very conflicts now threatening her life. As days passed within the cave, their bond deepened. Alara began picking up fragments of English from John's conversations, repeating words like asterisk tree asterisk light asterisk, and asterisk friend asterisk. In return, she taught him about Lizera, her homeworld, a planet of breathtaking beauty. She described forests that sang when touched by sunlight, rivers that flowed with liquid crystal, and skies filled with 3 moons. It sounded like paradise, yet the scars of war were etched deeply into its landscape and its people. Max played a vital role in bridging their worlds. He seemed to understand Alara's emotions instinctively, offering comfort whenever fear or exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. One evening, as they sat around a small fire John had built inside the cave, Max curled up between them, resting his head on Alara's lap. She stroked his fur gently, smiling, a rare moment of pure joy amid the chaos. But not all moments were peaceful. At night, Alara often woke screaming, her telepathic cries jolting John awake. These nightmares brought harrowing visions of her escape, explosions tearing apart her ship, comrades falling to enemy fire, and the relentless hunters closing in. Each time, John would sit beside her, speaking softly until the tremors subsiding. "You're safe here," he'd say, though even he wasn't sure if it was true anymore. One day, while exploring deeper into the cave system, they discovered something extraordinary. A chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed softly when touched. Alara recognized them immediately as remnants of ancient technology left behind by her ancestors. Placing her hands on one of the crystals, she closed her eyes, focusing intently. Energy surged through her body, healing lingering traces of her injuries and amplifying her natural abilities. When she opened her eyes again, they shone brighter than ever, radiating confidence. John watched in awe, realizing just how remarkable Alara truly was. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a beacon of hope for her fractured people. And somehow fate had placed her in his care. Yet, as their connection grew stronger, so did the guilt gnawing at John. Humanity had caused so much destruction on its own planet. How could it possibly deserve such trust? Still, seeing Alara's determination reminded him of something important. No matter how flawed humans were, acts of kindness could spark change. For the first time in years, John felt purpose, not just in protecting Alara, but in helping her fulfill her mission. Outside, the hunters continued their relentless search, drawing closer with each passing hour. But inside the cave, surrounded by ancient messages of unity and hope, John, Alara, and Max prepared to fight back, not just for survival, but for the future of 2 worlds intertwined by destiny. The deeper they ventured into the cave system, the more Alara's confidence grew. The ancient technology seemed to resonate with her, awakening dormant abilities she hadn't fully understood before. One day, while exploring a narrow tunnel lined with glowing crystals, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, a massive chamber housing what appeared to be an alien vessel. The ship was unlike anything John had ever imagined. Sleek and organic in design, it looked almost alive, its surface rippling faintly as if breathing. Strange symbols etched into its hull matched those on the cave walls, confirming it belonged to the same group of travelers who had once sought refuge on Earth. Alara approached it cautiously, her hands trembling with a mix of awe and reverence. "This is yours?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head, then projected images into his mind. Ancient beings boarding the ship, their faces filled with sorrow, but also resolve. This wasn't just a vehicle. It was a relic of peace, left behind by a faction called the Vailari. They were explorers and diplomats, dedicated to preserving harmony across galaxies until war wiped them out. Alara placed her palm on the ship's surface, and it responded instantly, shimmering brighter as panels slid open to reveal a control console. She stepped inside, motioning for John and Max to follow. The interior was warm and inviting, filled with soft light that pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star maps, data logs, and recordings from the Valeri's final days. Through these logs, Allura learned critical truths about Earth's role in galactic history. It wasn't just a random planet. It was designated as a neutral zone under interstellar law, protected by treaties meant to prevent exploitation or conflict. But over time, those laws had been ignored, allowing rogue factions like the ones hunting her to operate unchecked. "This changes everything," John muttered, overwhelmed by the implications. If Earth was supposed to be a sanctuary, then the hunters' actions here weren't just illegal, they were an act of war against the entire galaxy. Allura nodded firmly, her expression resolute. Using the ship's systems, she began repairing her damaged physiology, channeling energy from the core to heal herself completely. Her wounds vanished entirely, leaving her skin radiant and unblemished. More importantly, the process unlocked new abilities, enhanced strength, heightened senses, and the power to manipulate energy fields around her. But there was still one problem: exposing the truth. The hunters wouldn't stop until they captured Allura, and without evidence, no one would believe her story. That's when she discovered another function of the ship, a transmitter capable of broadcasting messages across vast distances of space. With this, she could alert not only her own people, but also allies among other civilizations who might intervene. "We can do this," John said, determination replacing his earlier doubts. "Let's make sure your voice is heard." As Allura worked on preparing the transmission, John kept watch outside, scanning the skies for signs of danger. Max stayed close, his ears perked up for any unusual sounds. The forest beyond the cave remained eerily quiet, as though holding its breath. Finally, after hours of preparation, Allura activated the transmitter. A beam of light shot upward through the cave opening, piercing the atmosphere and carrying her message into the depths of space. In it, she shared everything: the betrayal of her people, the violation of Earth's neutrality, and the urgent need for intervention. Almost immediately, the hunters responded. Drones swarmed the area, converging on the cave with alarming speed. The trio barely had time to retreat into the ship before explosions rocked the entrance, sealing them inside. "They're here," John said grimly, gripping the knife at his side. Allura took a deep breath, her glowing eyes reflecting both fear and resolve. "Not just yet," she replied telepathically, projecting calm determination into his mind. "We have one last chance." With the ship humming to life beneath them, Allura prepared to confront the hunters, not as a fugitive, but as a warrior fighting for justice. And this time, she wouldn't face them alone. The ship roared to life, its engines vibrating through the chamber, like a heartbeat awakening after centuries of silence. Allura stood at the controls, her glowing hands moving with practiced ease, despite having never piloted such a vessel before. The ancient technology seemed to respond instinctively to her touch, as if recognizing her lineage and purpose. John clutched the edge of a console, his knuckles white, while Max crouched low, his ears flattened against the deafening hum of energy surging around them. Outside, the hunters launched their final assault. Explosions echoed through the cave system, collapsing tunnels and sending shards of rock tumbling into the chamber. Dust filled the air, but Allura remained focused, her eyes locked on the holographic displays flickering before her. She projected calm reassurance into John's mind, urging him to trust her. "We can do this," she thought, her voice steady even as chaos erupted around them. With a burst of light, the ship ascended vertically, breaking through layers of stone and soil until it breached the surface. Emerging into the open sky, they found themselves surrounded by enemy drones, sleek, predatory machines armed with pulsating weapons that glowed ominously. Beyond the drones, a larger mothership loomed overhead, casting an ominous shadow over the forest below. "They're trying to block our escape," John shouted above the din, pointing toward the encircling drones. Alara didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, she activated the ship's defensive systems. Energy shields shimmered into existence around the vessel, deflecting incoming blasts. Then, with another command, she unleashed a pulse wave that sent several drones spiraling out of control, crashing into the trees below. Max barked excitedly, clearly impressed by the display of power. But the hunters weren't done yet. More drones converged, and the mothership began descending, its massive frame blotting out the sun. Alara gritted her teeth, pushing the ship's systems to their limits. Streams of golden energy shot from the hull, slicing through the enemy forces with precision. Yet for every drone destroyed, 2 more took its place. "We need to buy time," John yelled, realizing the transmission signal needed a few more moments to reach its intended recipients. He grabbed a fallen piece of debris, a jagged shard of crystal, and hurled it at the nearest console, triggering a secondary function. A hologram of Earth appeared, surrounded by lines of text, detailing its protected status under galactic law. "If they see this, maybe they'll back off." Alara nodded, amplifying the hologram so it broadcast outward, visible even to the hunters. For a brief moment, the attacks paused, confusion rippling through the enemy ranks. But the reprieve was short-lived. The mothership unleashed a devastating beam aimed directly at the ship. "Max, go," Alara commanded telepathically, projecting urgency into the dog's mind. Max sprang into action, darting toward the rear compartment where auxiliary controls were located. Following her instructions, he activated decoy flares that erupted in dazzling bursts of light, drawing the enemy fire away from the main vessel. Meanwhile, John spotted something crucial, a weak point in the mothership's armor. "There," he cried, pointing to a glowing seam near its base. Alara adjusted the ship's trajectory, charging forward with incredible speed. At the last second, she released a concentrated blast of energy, striking the seam dead-on. The impact caused a chain reaction, sending shockwaves rippling through the mothership as parts of it began to collapse. As the hunters scrambled to regain control, reinforcements finally arrived. Ships bearing the insignias of peacekeeping forces loyal to the Valeri's legacy. They descended swiftly, engaging the rogue faction and forcing them into retreat. Relief washed over Alara and John as the immediate threat dissipated. "Thank you," Alara whispered, turning to John with tears glistening in her luminous eyes. Together, they had faced overwhelming odds and won. But their journey wasn't over yet. The galaxy now knew Earth's importance, and Alara's fight for justice would continue. Still, for the first time in what felt like forever, hope burned brightly within her heart. And beside her, Max wagged his tail triumphantly, proving once again that even the smallest acts of bravery could change the course of destiny. The arrival of the galactic peacekeepers marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Alara, but for Earth itself. The rogue faction's mothership retreated into the void, its forces scattered and subdued by the overwhelming might of the Alliance forces. Hovering above the planet, sleek vessels from various civilizations formed a protective perimeter, their lights casting an ethereal glow over the forest below. It was clear that Alara's message had been heard loud and clear. Inside the ancient ship, Alara turned to John, her expression filled with gratitude and sorrow. She projected images into his mind, scenes of her homeworld Lazura, now bathed in the light of hope rather than destruction. Her people would rise again, united under the banner of peace she had fought so hard to preserve. But leaving Earth meant saying goodbye to the two beings who had become her family in such a short time. "I can't thank you enough," John said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "You've changed everything. For us, for this planet." Alara smiled faintly, placing a glowing hand on his shoulder. In response, fragments of memories flooded his mind, moments they had shared, laughter echoing through the cave, Max bounding ahead as they explored the woods together. These were treasures she would carry with her forever. Before departing, Alara handed John a small crystalline device no larger than a coin. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver, pulsing gently in rhythm with her heartbeat. Through their connection, John understood. It contained recordings of her journey, evidence of humanity's compassion, and a promise to return one day. "For you," she whispered telepathically, her thoughts warm and tender. Max whined softly, nudging her hand with his nose. Alara knelt down, hugging him tightly. To John's surprise, Max seemed to understand what was happening. Instead of barking or resisting, he simply rested his head on her lap, his tail wagging slowly. For all his instincts and loyalty, Max knew when it was time to let go. As the peacekeepers guided the rogue faction away, Alara stepped aboard one of their ships, turning back one last time to wave goodbye. Her luminous form disappeared into the vessel, which ascended gracefully into the stars. John stood there long after it vanished, clutching the crystal close to his chest. Max sat beside him, leaning against his leg as if offering silent support. In the weeks that followed, life returned to a semblance of normalcy, or at least as normal as it could be after such extraordinary events. News of Earth's protected status spread quietly among governments and scientists, though much of the world remained unaware of the galactic significance of their planet. John kept the crystal safe, occasionally replaying Alara's recordings to remind himself of the incredible bond they had forged. Max continued to thrive, his playful energy undiminished by the adventures they'd endured. Yet there were moments when he would pause mid-play, ears perking up as if listening for something distant. A faint hum, perhaps, or the echo of a friend long gone. John often found himself gazing at the stars, wondering where Alara was now and how her mission was progressing. He felt proud knowing that their small corner of the universe had played a role in something far greater than themselves, and deep down, he believed her promise, that one day she would return. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of gold and violet, Max barked excitedly, pointing toward the horizon. There, streaking across the heavens, was a single beam of light, too bright, too deliberate to be a falling star. John smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "Is that her?" he murmured, scratching Max behind the ears. The dog wagged his tail furiously, as if answering in the affirmative. Whether it was truly Alara or simply wishful thinking didn't matter. What mattered was the hope she had left behind, a reminder that kindness, courage, and unity could bridge even the vastest divides. As the light faded into the night, John turned back toward the cabin, ready to face whatever the future held. For now, Earth was safe, and somewhere out there, among the infinite possibilities of the cosmos, Alara carried the story of their bond, a testament to the power of trust, love, and the unbreakable ties that connect all living beings.